Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Mayor Erica A. Stewart, and I'm here to say all of the council is present today in person. And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, stand if you're able. Thank you very much. So today we get to celebrate Hispanic, Latinx, Latino Heritage Month, which is actually starting on September 15th, but this is the meeting we have before then, so here we are. So I will be reading a proclamation, and then I will be presenting Rick Mayfield with the official proclamation on behalf of the Latino Outreach Council. So whereas Hispanic, Latinx, Latino Heritage Month began as only a week in 1988, then expanded to a month from September 15th to October 15th. September 15th was chosen as a starting point because it is the anniversary of the Cry of Dolores of 1810, which marked the start of the Mexican War of Independence. National Hispanic, Latinx, Latino Heritage Month is an important reminder of how much strength we draw as a nation from our immigrant roots and recognize that Hispanic, Latinx, Latino heritage is American heritage. We see it in every aspect of our national life and the cultural fabric that enriches media, music, food, and much more. The city of San Luis Obispo has a diverse population in which the Hispanic, Latinx, Latino population make up 18.8% and are the largest ethnic group in the state of California, with 15.6 million Hispanic, Latinx, Latino people calling it home. Throughout our history, our Hispanic, Latinx, Latino communities have fought inequalities and injustices, shaping the social, political, and economic landscapes. As we reflect on the past year and look ahead, we recognize and are grateful to the Hispanic, Latinx, Latino community who help keep our city vibrant and prosperous. They are our teachers, our business owners, our farm workers and first responders, artists and activists, colleagues and friends. We stand proudly and honor the contributions of the Latino Outreach Council in having marked 30 years of serving the community, dedicated to facilitating equal and full participation of all members of the Hispanic, Latinx, Latino community. Therefore, I, Erica A. Stewart, Mayor of the City of San Luis Obispo, on behalf of the entire City Council, hereby proclaim September 15th to October 15th as Hispanic, Latinx, Latino Heritage Month and urge all community members in the City of San Luis Obispo to join me in honoring this remarkable community and their essential contributions.
See you. Thank you.
For being here.
Thank you very much.
Maybe 3 minutes to chat about.
Okay. Yeah. My name is Rick Mayfield, and I've had the honor of serving the Latino community here in San Luis Obispo for the last 30 years as a public school administrator, and I carry that on now in my retirement, which is a great thing, with the Latino Outreach Council. The goals of the Latino Outreach Council are very similar to the goals of Latino Heritage Month, namely educating the community on the contributions that Latinos and Latinas have made throughout history of the United States and to celebrate culture and the history of Latino culture. There are many events taking place within the county. Both Cal Poly and Cuesta College will have events that are open to students as well as to the public. Public school teachers receive information to share with their students. Hispanic Heritage Festival kicks off in Paso on the 15th, Sunday the 15th of September up in Downtown Park in Paso. And then Latino Outreach Council is hosting the Dia de los Muertos on the Sunday the 3rd of November here in Mission Plaza. And we hope to see you around at those events. And so on behalf of the Latino Outreach Council, I thank you very much for this proclamation and all the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have the annual presentation from Central Coast Community Energy, and we're really excited to have Judith Young and Catherine Stedman from 3CE to provide a presentation. And thank you to the City Clerk for getting that presentation available for all. And while we're in the middle of that, I just really want to thank everyone at 3CE for really listening to us in these last couple of weeks. I know it's been kind of a heated conversation, but I really appreciate all of your time that you've taken and your staff has taken as well.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members, staff. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I have to say, wonderful to receive all of your input over the past several weeks. It's been very helpful, I think, in getting us to a better outcome. So I am Catherine Stedman, Chief Communications Officer with Central Coast Community Energy, and very happy to be here for our annual presentation to the City of San Luis Obispo. So quickly, I'll go over who 3CE is because not everyone knows. We're a new government agency. We were formed about 6 years ago when all these cities and counties came together and said, what if we purchased the electricity to serve our region? Could we do it better? As a local public agency, could we be competitive in price, make greater progress on renewables, and provide investment back into our communities? I'm here today to show you how we're doing and what benefits are being offered right here in the city of San Luis Obispo. As our agency has grown, our investment in communities has increased. Our budget for community energy programs in fiscal year 23-24 is over $16 million, which are dollars that are available to the city and your constituents to help reduce emissions by electrifying vehicles and buildings. To date, on behalf of all the cities and counties we serve, we've invested $4.5 billion in new renewable energy and energy storage projects, which are making the grid cleaner and helping the environment by reducing fossil fuel emissions. Some of those projects include new technologies that are pushing the envelope toward 100% clean and renewable power, like a compressed air storage project, which will be the largest in the world of its kind. And in the photo here, a geothermal project in Mammoth Lakes, the first new geothermal project to serve the state in 30 years. We have power purchase agreements in negotiation or in place to cover 80% of our annual load with renewable energy. The challenge is bringing these projects online in a timely manner due to the current backlog in California around permitting and grid connection and delays in transmission upgrades. And yet, so much progress is being made. If you hadn't heard, the amount of renewable energy on the grid exceeded customer demand in California this year. In fact, there are now times of the day when the state is running on 100% renewable carbon-free electricity. This is a huge accomplishment, and agencies like 3CE are very much a part of the reason why. Not only are the renewable projects we've contracted with contributing to the solution, but they are also achieving cost savings for our customers. And because of a decision by our policy board last year, they are being evaluated based on their commitment to local community engagement, environmental protection, and workforce support. In addition to providing clean power, I also talked about providing direct investment. Some of our recent projects include an all-electric school bus for the San Luis Coastal Unified School District. These projects are reducing emissions that bring serious health impacts. We're helping to clean the air, protect the environment, and build better health outcomes for our communities. To reduce emissions in the built environment, our new construction electrification program supports affordable housing projects, including the 207 Higuera Mixed Use Project, to which we've contributed $33,000 to make all electric. We also provided funding for 80 all-electric homes, including 2 affordable townhomes at the FIG at the Orchard project, and incentivized the installation of 60 heat pump HVAC units for the downtown terrace. We've committed support this year for 200 new units of affordable all-electric housing throughout our service territory, and those projects have completion dates ranging from this year to 2026. Another place we're investing in is agriculture. We provide funding assistance for all-electric farm equipment to replace diesel-powered pumps, tractors, and more. We've helped big and small farms in all the 5 counties we serve, including helping Slow City Farm to purchase an electric tractor and a UTV. Here is a summary of the residential, commercial, and agricultural rebates available to our customers, including the ever-popular Electrify Your Ride, which provides rebates for new and used EVs, chargers, and panel upgrades. I also have a brand-new incentive to tell you about today, our residential battery rebate program, which launched earlier this year, and when stacked with other incentives, covers 60 to 100% of the purchase and installation cost for a home battery, depending on customer income level. Specifically, in the city of San Luis Obispo, 3CE has invested over $2.8 million through its energy programs. Oh, it's a very sensitive little mouse here. Oh, there we go. So, in closing, I just want to say that the city has really been a tremendous partner to Central Coast Community Energy. Over the past several years, the city has leveraged our programs to purchase 10 electric vehicles and 9 chargers, and performed work with the help of our agency to plan your roadmap to a transition to a zero-emission fleet. You're setting an example for other cities of what we can accomplish together, and we look forward to continuing that work. The last thing I'll add for the public is that the applications for our programs are on our website, 3cenergy.org. Go there to apply for generous rebates and incentives that are available to all of our customers, including those to help purchase electric vehicles, heat pump water heaters, and HVAC systems. I hope I have provided a good picture of what our agency is doing to bring clean energy and community investment to the city of San Luis Obispo. And I would especially like to thank Councilmember Marks for her service on our board of directors, and to Natural Resources Manager Bob Hill for his service to our operations board. Both of you have been champions of our mission, and we are truly grateful for your engagement and support. In closing, on behalf of everyone at 3CE, we thank you for the opportunity to be your local electricity generation provider, to support you and be your partner. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation, and it's great to see, kind of just all these highlights of the great work that you've all been doing. And really, when you think about how much work is behind what you just shared, I don't think the general public maybe understands all of that detail, so just really appreciate that. And I also want to echo your thanks to Mr. Hill and Councilmember Marks. Yeah. Any questions? Councilmember Shorsman.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the community is pretty aware, at least at this point. A lot of people are aware of the rebate programs that you've offered. Those have been amazing, and I know we're super grateful for them. Just wondering, give you an opportunity maybe to talk about the new one a little bit more, the residential battery rebate program, since that's new.
Sure. We just launched in July, and it's a per kilowatt hour capacity based rebate. But it really, when you stack it with the SCHIP resources that are available through the state makes a significant contribution to purchasing a home battery, which to my mind is really the way forward when we're looking at what can residents do to help control utility rates. If you have solar and a battery, you can be charging your battery during the day and then discharging in the evening, which is really the period of time where electricity rates are very high. So not only is it helping your utility bill, it's actually helping us get to 100% renewable, because when the sun goes down and solar isn't available, those are the times of the day that the state is still relying on natural gas. So energy storage is just a huge part of the solution. And I would add that for our customers that are on CARE and FARA, the incentives that are available combined with ours really could cover 100% of the cost to install these batteries. So we're very excited about the program. We've had a lot of interest. We've had a lot of media coverage. So we just encourage everyone to go to the website and check it out.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you. Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, thank you for providing all of that information. I wanted to put in a plug for revisiting your e-bike incentives. 2 years ago, I was able to subsidize the purchase of an e-bike, and I've been able to cut my in-town trips by half by using the bike a lot. And I know that the program was well received, and I would love for you all to look at maybe bringing that back for the community. So I think it would be fantastic for us to get to our mode shift goals. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. If no other questions, you are free. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, now we move on to the highlights of what's been happening in the community, and we have our city manager report.
Thank you very much. We have just a handful of slides to go over to highlight a few items for everyone this evening. One is to provide an update on some steps we've been taking internally as staff on parking program updates, really surrounding technology. So the first is we had heard when we, several times, but certainly when we last talked about our parking rate study, that there was a desire for the city to consolidate the number of mobile app options that we offer down from 4 that we had earlier in the year all down to 1. And so staff have taken a number of steps to help us with that. And a request for proposals was issued. 8 proposals were received, with 4 determined to meet minimum qualifications. We have created a review committee that includes both internal staff members, including economic development and IT staff, and of course parking staff, as well as external stakeholders through our downtown parking and access committee and task force. So our downtown SLO Business Association has really helped us a lot in evaluating all of the issues surrounding parking. And so we've continued to engage with them through the task force that they created to help us review the parking rate study. They've been continuing to help us with this element, which is to really select the app that we think is going to best meet the needs of our community. And so we anticipate being able to make a selection later this month, with a rollout targeted in October, November area. That will include some ability to have some more surveying and outreach to community members to make sure that we're including some kind of real-time feedback from members of the public on how are the apps working. So that's an update on our single mobile payment app process. In addition, we've been working on a technology roadmap, which was something that we discussed again as part of our parking rate study back in May. The roadmap is anticipated to be presented to the City Council later this year, currently scheduled for November 17th. It will include a discussion of our gated garage system solution. So we know we need to move away from the gateless system that we have currently in place at our 842 Palm structure, and then look at trying to integrate ideally one system that will work throughout all of our parking garages so that it's kind of a seamless experience for people. And so that will be included in the technology roadmap, as well as some analysis of a citation issuance system, which is, we currently have a system that we're using, and we want to make sure that we're really finding one that works best and is integrated best, as well as a multi-space pay station system. So our pay stations that we currently use, do those work best, or do we need to look at maybe a longer term change or solution there? And then a system that will help us issue digital permits as well. So that technology roadmap, we anticipate, again, bringing back to council later this year. And so we wanted to let everybody know what we were up to on those two fronts, since we've been doing a lot of work on those areas. And so we'll look forward to bringing those discussions back to council later this year. Next, we wanted to make sure everyone was aware that we will be rolling out our extended service hours for slow transit, really accounting for our increased ridership from Cal Poly students, staff, and faculty. So beginning on Monday, September 16th, we will resume our academic schedule that includes extending our fixed route service hours. In addition, Slow Transit will resume our express service called the 6 Express, which runs directly from Cal Poly campus to the Farmers Market downtown every Thursday. And again, we encourage riders to plan ahead and download trip information on our Slow Transit app or the Slow Transit Rider portal, which is a web-based version of the app, or of course can utilize printed schedules that are available at our finance office, our clerk's office, the Chamber of Commerce, as well as our mobility services office, which other folks might recognize as our parking office. So just wanted to highlight that change in our service as well. We're happy to conduct a ribbon cutting for our North Truro Greenway, Neighborhood Greenway project. It is currently scheduled for Wednesday, September 11th in the afternoon, beginning at 3:15. We will be converging at 651 Foothill Boulevard, and we'll be looking forward to bringing everybody together to formally do the ribbon cutting celebration for this major infrastructure project. Of course, there are some elements of the project that have not yet been completed under the Truro overpass, so folks are aware. We are awaiting two components. One is lighting. We have yet to receive power from PG&E, so there are lighting fixtures there, but we haven't been able to electrify them yet. And then the other piece is a really beautiful public art installation and painting that we anticipate completing on the cement fixtures under the overpass as well. We were kind of thrown for a ringer a little bit due to some state contractors licensing board issues related to public murals and art, but we really look forward to completing those components of the project as well. But of course, the other parts of the Greenway are completed and are being used every day, and so we're looking forward to having a ribbon cutting on September 11th. Next, we wanted to remind everyone about user fee changes that will be going into effect on October 1st, 2024. Of course, we went through a really extensive process to evaluate these fee increases and presented a couple of discussions to council, and then ultimately council adopted those on July 2nd. With the intent that we would have some time to put a number of things in place to make sure we could roll out the fees effectively on October 1st, as well as provide outreach like this as an example to make sure folks were aware of what was going to be in effect. Just a quick reminder that any fees that are anticipated to increase by 50% and at least $10 will be phased in to ease the overall impact. So the first half of the increase will be in effect October 1st. The second half of the increase will be in effect July 1st of next year. We also wanted to let folks know that our impact fee schedule, which had not been changed dramatically or weren't studied as part of the user fee study, typically those are adjusted by essentially construction cost index, which is similar to a CPI, which is a different type of index. Typically, those are adjusted on July 1st. We did not actually enact that adjustment July 1st of this year, so we are looking to bring that CCI index increase in line with the user fee increase on October 1st. So it's a slight adjustment. It's it's roughly a 1.5% increase. So it shouldn't be a dramatic change on the impact fee side of things, but we wanted to let people know that we'll be rolling out around the same time. Of course, our community members can see all of our fees at slowcity.org/fees. That really lays out the changes that were enacted and what can be seen bringing forward into the future. Next, wanted to highlight our big Parks and Rec event that will be coming up later in September, on September 28th. Hope everybody's getting ready for our annual September Scramble Family Adventure Obstacle Course. This year, over 20 obstacles will be spread out over our 0.75-mile course within the Laguna Lake Golf Course to challenge both young people and adults, anyone, all ages, including a climbing wall, a cargo net, a tire mountain, hay bale hurdles, tunnels, balance beams, and the ever-popular mud crawl as well. So hope everybody comes out and plays on September 28th. For more information on registration, you can visit the Parks and Rec website at slowparksandrec.org. And then finally, we will be holding our annual Day of Remembrance for September 11th on September 11th at Fire Station 1. The event begins at 8 o'clock with opening comments beginning at 8:30. So we hope folks come out and help us with this remembrance event in the morning, and then join us later in the afternoon for our North Truro Greenway ribbon cutting. So that's it from me for this report.
Thank you. That's a lot of information, and we'll be very busy on the 11th. I do have one question with the rollout of the new app rollout, the parking app for October, November. Just thinking about the holidays coming up at that time and really encouraging people to shop downtown at that time. I was curious if it was a reason that timeline was chosen versus just waiting until January. Is it because it'll be easier to use, or if there's downtown thought that would be really good? Just curious.
I have to say I don't know the specifics, so I'm kind of imagining that perhaps, it's we're trying to strike a balance of understanding that there will be some impacts, but also wanting to provide that simplicity for people earlier. But I don't know I'm looking at our Deputy City Manager, Greg Herman, to see if he has any input, or our Public Works Director to see if there is anything more specific on that timeline.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. We've been meeting with the Parking and Access Committee, and I think they're aware of the timeline and generally supportive. I also think the expectation is that when we go down to an app, we'll go down to an app that we're currently using, and so therefore there shouldn't necessarily be a huge shift. And I think we have an idea of which apps are most used by the largest groups of people and are factoring that into the decision as well.
Let's throw in one more piece of information. We developed a schedule for how fast we can implement the one app solution. Once we know the one app and we have all their structural contracts in place, implementation can be brought in at a time that's most appropriate for the downtown community. So we want to get all the pieces in place so we can implement.
Got it. Thank you so much. Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Horn, don't sit down quite so quickly there. My question is about compatibility with the app that's being used at Cal Poly, because a lot of people are coming to and from our city and Cal Poly. So is it the same app, or is it, how is that going to work?
Thank you for that. That's actually the process we're going through right now. And so one of the selection criteria is the app used locally in our county? And I think that goes to Santa Maria all the way up to Paso. So we want to make sure that we have an app that has a local presence already. And the selection committee is going to look at all the different things that we need from the app and pick the app that works best for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Schwarzman.
Thanks. Yeah, one more related to that. I think I remember us discussing that if possible, there would be some incentives or ways to kind of try to help steer people, incentivize, changing to the new app once it's finally decided. Is that one of the factors that you're kind of looking at too, is possibilities for that?
Yeah, it sure is. Promotional activities that the downtown can use the app for is included in the selection criteria for the app. So it's definitely on our radar. We understand that it's important to everyone, and we want to make sure we provide that service.
Great, and I really think it's awesome, just put it out there, that you all are continuing to utilize that Access and Parking Committee and Task Force, because they were very engaged, and I know they have a lot of opinions and a lot of experience in what people are coming into their stores and talking about. So I hope it's helpful.
It is, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, seeing no other questions, we'll move forward to public comment for items not on the agenda. So if you still have questions or comments you'd like to add in, please make sure you turn in your speaker slip to the city clerk. Otherwise, I will ask the city clerk if there are any public comments.
Yes, we have two, Ann Hodges and then Julia Alber.
I'm Ann Hodges. I got your little postcard too, and what it did was solidify a bunch of feelings about this and other projects that are going on in the city. I wasn't going to mention anything, but I do think 9/11 was a poor choice for the day, essentially with a solemn ceremony in the morning and a celebration in the afternoon. But if you live in the neighborhood, maybe it is, because we don't see it as it wasn't all pleasant. 2019 was when November of 2019 was when the city council approved this, and it was 2 years of planning before that. And now we're left with something that, I got trees, I have a piece of property on that route, planted in front of my house. Okay. Talked to the neighbor. They got trees. Nobody contacted them either. And what's unusual about this is trees are kind of nice. The neighbor has made her trees into topiary so pedestrians and cars don't interfere with it. But we have utility lines directly above, and we watch city crews sweep the street by hand because the bike lane is so full of leaves, and many of the trees were deciduous. They start on Mission, they end on Lincoln, but those utility lines disappear from Lincoln to Palm, but there are no trees in that area, and that had new sidewalks poured, and we had those trees dug up twice installed and reinstalled because they forgot the root boxes. Well, they only put 2 panels. I always felt a box was 4, but who cares? And why didn't the rest of the street get trees? They had new sidewalks. They had an area that even the residential units don't have any trees that shade either the sidewalk or the roadway, because shading your roadway makes it cooler. And, on the line of trees, have you looked where they've been putting them? Throop Park, which is missing all of its signage, the city has taken away over the last 3 or 4 years. There's no more signage calling it Throop Park, so I don't know if it's Teach School, Play Yard, or what. but you've been removing trees there, putting trees back. That's nice. But they're not where the old trees were, where shade was needed. They're out in the playfield. Have a nice day. I just needed to kind of bitch and moan a bit.
Thank you.
Our final speaker is Julia Albers.
Right. Good evening, Good evening, Mayor Stewart and City Council members. My name is Julie Albert. You've seen me before and probably will see me several times after this. I am here on behalf of the SLO County Tobacco Control Coalition as their chair and also as a city resident as well, to just follow up on some local tobacco issues that we have presented previously concerning flavored tobacco product availability and smoking in multi-unit housing. First, we would like to thank the SLO Police Department, specifically Sergeant Trainer and his colleague, for meeting with the County Tobacco Control Program staff to get some clarification on flavors and what flavors are considered to align with what the state considers a tobacco flavor. To further policy implementation with flavors, we are recommending to follow the best practices, which include developing a plan for enforcement covering both sales to minors and flavored and e-cigarette product bans, increasing penalties for stores that violate to improve retailer compliance with local, state, and federal laws, and providing ongoing retailer education. And we're looking forward to continued collaboration with the SLO Police Department on this. Additionally, we wanted to provide an update about our discussion on smoke-free housing within our multi-unit housing units in SLO. We have been working with community partners. I know we met with several of you, and we've been talking to community partners about their experiences with smoking and opinions, and we're exploring what it would actually entail to do an expansion to our local ordinance within multi-unit housing, including making sure we are not going to disproportionately impact vulnerable populations in particular. Right now, there are over 100 different locations in California. We just saw one last week pass the same policy, so this is not a new thing. And we know that smoke-free housing policies like this within the units actually help the most vulnerable populations. So last month, our coalition hosted 2 speakers from those nearby counties to tell us how they actually passed them or what they're doing right now and what that looked like in terms of enforcement, who they reached out to, and making sure they had equitable enforcement as well. So we would just like to thank you for your time to meet with us and hear from us, and we promise we'll be back to talk to you more about this later. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's our last speaker?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, thank you to our speakers for sharing their thoughts, and we'll move forward to the consent agenda. These are items that are typically considered not very contentious, so we will move forward through the consent agenda. Anything to be pulled from my colleagues? Vice Mayor Pease.
Thank you. I don't know that it needs a separate vote or anything, but I would like a little bit of conversation on 5E, the sewer lateral. Yeah. So in terms of the alternatives, there's some discussion in there, so I'll touch on that.
Thank you. I have a question on there as well. Councilmember Marks.
Oh, I had a question on there as well, so.
Perfect.
Maybe
we should just pull it just
Yeah.
so we can at least have that conversation. Councilmember Shorsman.
I just had a comment actually on, and not on 5E, but I'm happy to participate in the discussion if we have one. 5H, I just wanted to give a little shout out to SLOCOG for funding our fare-free transit during the rideshare week in October. So keep your eyes out for that, folks that ride the transit, because it'll be free that week. So thank you to SLOCOG.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful week, and we're glad to see more people hopefully riding the bus. Well, 5E, can we just, I don't think we need to actually pull it to vote yet if we want to just ask the questions, if you have questions, or do you have comments? I guess that'll be my first question for you, Vice Mayor Pease.
I think mine is just a comment. There is under the alternatives about the multifamily residential properties. And I'm not interested in trying to jump in or amend this particular one. But I guess I just want to lift it up as, you know, I have questions about what would be, it just seems like that's potentially, you know, a lot of sewer lines. So I think it would be in that next financial plan worth exploring to understand what the impacts would be to expand the incentive program and see how that would go. That was it.
Thank you. I have a question for Director Tway. With the, I think it's on page 120, we talk about the developers roundtable and people who are reached out to. I'm curious, were there actual members of the community, property owners, who were part of the sewer lateral process in the so far or in process soon that were also reached out to? Or Mr. Floyd, whichever.
Thank you. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Aaron.
All right.
Actually, no.
Nope.
Mayor, members of council, great question. So as far as outreach that has been conducted, there's been ongoing outreach for the past several years. The primary audience that we've met with is the Realtors Association. We've gone to a lot of their routine meetings, held a few workshops, and then a lot of it's honestly is word of mouth. We get phone calls, we do outreach at farmers market. It has been presented at the Developers Roundtable, but the incentive is typically for property owners.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely appreciate the Realtors and Developers Roundtable because obviously you have people right there that are experiencing probably comments from property owners or potential property owners. And I know personally I receive a lot of comments about this program. So I just wanted to make sure there were some people who have either recently experienced the sewer lateral program or were going through it that you've heard from in these changes. So thank you. Councilmember Marks.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious, are you sending out notices? I found the map that was provided in the staff report interesting, and I was sort of shocked at how many defective sewer laterals are out there in our city. And I'm just curious, are you sending letters to people, or how are they going to actually know, first of all, that they have a defective sewer lateral? I mean, actually, they're buried in the ground, and not everyone would know. And if they did find out, how do they know about the rebate? What is the process there?
And if you want to tag in, Mr. Floyd is behind you too.
Yeah.
Great question. And you mentioned, Councilmember Marks, you mentioned the map that is in the staff report. So anyone can access that map. We are trying to do additional outreach to direct people to this map, but if you go to slowcity.org/laterals, LATERALS, that'll direct you right to that map, and anyone can actually punch in a property address and they can see the condition of their lateral, or at least as the city has it on record. So to date, there's about 60% of the private sewer laterals in the city that we don't have a condition for. And that's one of the reasons why we have an ongoing inspection upon sale requirement for property transfer of ownership if it's older than 20 years or if it hasn't been inspected. It's just typically something that most people don't think about. So trying to do additional outreach at farmers market, the developer roundtable has been an outlet, but really the Realtors Association, I think, have been our key stakeholders in getting the word out. Open to suggestions, but that is part of the challenge, is getting homeowners aware that this is an issue.
That makes sense. I mean, being the 16th city out of 483, we have some old things to find. Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, less of a question, more of a comment and follow-up to a question I asked Mr. Floyd earlier today about the homeowners who are eligible for additional rebates who had replaced theirs within the last year. And he had mentioned that there was both the capacity and the intent to proactively reach out to those homeowners. And I just was excited to hear that folks should be getting communication from the city to let them know they're eligible for additional rebates. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Councilmember Shorsman.
Thank you. Yes, I guess one more comment since I had a chance to talk to staff about this earlier today during agenda review, and just sort of wanted to recognize that I think this larger rebate that we're going to be offering is sort of the initial step of the bigger project, which is the study that staff have been doing to kind of see how our sewer lateral capacity has improved or changed over time. And then at some point in the future, and you can jump in and correct me if I say any of this wrong, but at some point in the near future, we'll have results of that study that will maybe help us determine the need for changing up our program a little bit more, or eliminating it, improving it, what have you. So I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Briefly, as you mentioned, staff anticipates returning to council sometime early next year, depending on schedule availability, but we are wrapping up that report and study right now, which is a model of our whole system, and will determine where the capacity limitations are. We're operating on the current model, which was completed in 2015, almost 10 years ago. So the new model will we're hoping, show progress, and we've made on the city side and the private side with these issues. But that'll be the next major update for this program. In the meantime, costs have gone up. We want to acknowledge that with this rebate.
Thanks. And yes, I do hear, as the mayor said, I'm sure all of us do, from community members who've had to replace their laterals and how expensive that has become. So I think this will be a welcomed reprieve in the short term.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Lehman. I see no other, oh, just kidding. Councilmember Francis. Okay. I understand. Do you have a question still on this? No? Okay, great. All right, so moving forward, we have public comment, and then we'll move forward to voting for the consent. Any public comment?
Yes, we have one public comment on item 5G. Oh, Steve Del Martini.
5'9" and under club. There we go. Thank you for inviting me here to speak today. I just want to bring up the situation that we've run into. There is one other realtor in the room here tonight, and she would probably acknowledge the same considerations that we have now in our new rules that took effect August 17th between the Department of Justice and the National Association of Realtors. That decision came down. It all started on the 17th. Most of the realtors in San Luis Obispo have had some pretty extensive opportunities for training to cover the new rules, but my concern is with your new below market rate housing administrator, I hope that you guys will take into consideration that they need the knowledge too. We can't show a house now without a buyer broker agreement is basically what it comes down to. And so I would hope that whomever comes into that position does recognize what we're going through as licensees. It's not just realtors. All licensees have to follow these rules. It's not just a realtor community. But we would like to have the cooperation and understanding from anybody that comes into the real estate market that they understand the rules and follow them. And I'm not sure how many requests, how many proposals you're going to get, how extensive those are, the knowledge of them. I think there might have been some disappointment with house keys overall, at least in my opinion. Anyway, I just wanted to bring it forward that and also obviously to offer ourselves, if you want to sit down and talk to us, our legislative group, and like we do with Chris or any of the other people, we'd love to sit down and talk to you and go over what this means, what it is, how it works, and what the consequences are for not doing it, and those type of things. So anyway, just wanted to bring it to your attention. And I was going to thank you also for the sewer rebate increase and those considerations as well. I know it's important to people because of the cost, but it's nice to have that recognized by the city and then offered to the public. And yeah, we're doing our best to help you guys out on that sewer lateral replacement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. No other public comment? Okay, then is there a motion? Councilmember Francis? Oh,
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Councilmember Shorsman?
I'll second.
Can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Shorsman?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Peace?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much. All right, now we move forward to the public hearing sorry, I almost skipped 6A. All right, so we have the introduction of an ordinance to amend Title 17 zoning regulations to allow cannabis retail storefronts to conduct retail sales by delivery. And I believe that Timmy Tway and Ivana Gomez will be presenting the report.
Good evening. My name is Timmy Tway. I'm the Director of Community Development, and Ivana is going to give this presentation, but it is her City Council debut, so I wanted to provide her with an introduction. She is our Cannabis Business Coordinator and has been such a wonderful asset to the city team with extensive experience in this business in particular. And the item before you, Ivana will give a brief overview, but it really is addressing a pretty clear cleanup in the code based on some prior council direction to allow businesses to operate delivery in addition to a retail storefront. And with that, I will hand it over to Ivana.
Thank you, Timmy. Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Ivana Gomez, and I'm the Cannabis Business Coordinator for the city, which is a role within the Community Development Department previously held by Alex Fuchs. I'm here today to review proposed text amendments to the zoning regulations to allow cannabis retail storefront operations to engage in delivery services. As Timmy mentioned, I do have a background in regulatory compliance within the cannabis industry, and so I look forward to answering any clarifying questions that you guys might have today. The recommendation today is to introduce and adopt an ordinance that would amend Table 2-1 of the city's zoning regulations to explicitly permit cannabis retail storefronts to provide delivery services within their respective zones. Today's proposed amendments to this table are consistent with previous City Council direction to staff to allow retail storefronts in the city to deliver, as well as consistent with the major city goals, state law, and with the purpose of the zones that permit retail storefront activity currently. The conversation regarding storefront delivery began back in 2023. So on March 7th, 2023, at the annual cannabis program update, the City Council provided direction to staff to update the cannabis program to allow retail storefronts to offer delivery services. In 2023, following this direction, staff immediately began revising the program's application materials and administrative regulations to allow storefront delivery. These changes required thorough internal review and approval by the city manager via the city manager report. Since then, there has been a transition between staff in the cannabis business coordinator role. Now that the department has received formal inquiries from operators to engage in delivery, we've identified that it would be important to provide very clear guidance in the zoning table pertaining to allowable cannabis activity and the processes for approval before we accepted applications. So on August 14th, 2024, staff brought the item to the Planning Commission, resulting in adoption of a resolution recommending the City Council adopt an ordinance to amend Table 2-1 to allow storefront delivery with approval of a conditional use permit or by amendment to an existing conditional use permit. For a bit of context or perhaps a refresher, there are two types of commercial cannabis retail activity. There's retail storefront and retail non-storefront, AKA delivery only. Retail storefronts are considered a type 10 license under state law and have a physical location where cannabis goods are sold. Under state law, storefront retailers may also deliver cannabis goods. In SLO, retail storefront permits are limited to 3 total in the city and are allowed in the commercial retail and service commercial zones. On-site retail sales are allowed between 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and delivery between 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. The city's zoning table for commercial cannabis activity does not explicitly demonstrate that retail storefronts in the CR commercial retail and service commercial zones may also deliver from these storefront locations. Delivery only is a separate permit type. These are considered a type 9 license under state regulations, and they may only sell cannabis goods through delivery. In SLO, these permit types are not limited, and they are allowed in the service commercial, the manufacturing, and the business park zones. It's also worth noting that all delivery services, whether tied to a storefront or not, are authorized by state law to deliver to any jurisdiction within California, so long as they operate in compliance with applicable state and local regulations. There are currently 2 cannabis operations in the city, both of which are retail storefronts. These are Megan's Organic Market and Slow Cal Roots, both on Higuera and South Higuera. The last or third retail storefront is pending issuance of a conditional use permit to commence operations in the South Broad Street area, an item that will go to Planning Commission next week. So if approved, this would be the final retail storefront license allowed in the city pursuant to the municipal code. So here is a look at Table 2-1 as it currently stands. It's located within the use regulation section of the zoning regulations, or section 171020. Currently, the table specifies that retailer delivery businesses are permitted in the service commercial, manufacturing, and business park zones with approval of a minor use permit, and retailer storefronts are permitted in the retail commercial and service commercial zones with approval of a conditional use permit. However, staff members have recognized that it's unclear in this table whether retail storefronts with accessory delivery services are permitted in the zones, particularly the CR and the CS zones. Therefore, the proposed amendments that are now shown in underline on this slide clarify that retailers engaging in delivery only, again, are permitted in the CS, M, and BP zones with approval of a minor use permit. They also clarify that retailer storefronts with or without delivery services are permitted in the retail commercial and service commercial zones with approval of a conditional use permit or by amendment to an existing conditional use permit. So essentially, this establishes a pathway for our existing retail storefronts in the city to apply for and receive approval to conduct delivery out of their existing storefront locations, which would increase flexibility for operators to make sales. It's also worth noting that there are many delivery services located outside of our city limits that can deliver to the city of SLO, so we do anticipate a very minimal increase in tax revenue if approved. In addition to being consistent with the previous City Council direction to staff back at the annual update in 2023, as well as with state law allowing storefront delivery, the recommendation today is also consistent with the broader major city goals. Economic resiliency, cultural vitality, and fiscal sustainability were prioritized as major city goals in the 2023-2025 financial plan. The proposed amendments align with these goals by providing more flexible sales avenues for operators, therefore supporting the local economy and contributing to the city's financial sustainability. The proposed amendments are also consistent with the purpose of the zones that currently allow storefront operations, which include the retail commercial and the service commercial zones. The purpose of the retail commercial zone is to serve the entire community and the region, as well as tourists and travelers. The amendments increase flexibility and convenience for residents, regional customers, and visitors to access cannabis goods and enable businesses to meet these evolving market demands, promoting resilience and stability for businesses within the commercial retail zone. The purpose of the service commercial or the CS zone is to provide services to meet local demands and needs of the region, including services and limited retail. So allowing retail storefronts in the service commercial or the CS zone to deliver allows these businesses to expand their service offerings, supporting the zone's objective of catering to both the community and the broader region. As far as environmental review goes, the recommended actions were reviewed in accordance with CEQA guidelines, and they are determined to be exempt under the general rule exemption, as they constitute minor modifications to the rules governing cannabis retail operations and do not have a significant effect on the environment. In addition to that, project-specific environmental review would be required for any new commercial cannabis activity. So any new or existing retailer applying for a conditional use permit or an amendment to a conditional use permit to engage in delivery would be required to comply with all applicable state and local law, including subjection to CEQA compliance. So again, the recommendation today is to introduce and adopt an ordinance to amend Table 2-1 within the zoning regulations to allow retail storefronts to deliver in their respective zones with approval of a conditional use permit or by amendment to an existing conditional use permit. That concludes my presentation today, and I will open the floor to questions and discussion. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and welcome, Ivana. It was a great presentation. Just one question. I didn't want to open up all of the CUP process, but just in a quick, where can someone go to find out the criteria? Because I see obviously that Director Tway, you can decide for the CUP as far as if a business decides to apply. So where would someone find that criteria?
So there are specific criteria for...
1 second, there you go, sorry.
Thank you. There are specific criteria for all use permits within the planning application materials. However, there are additional requirements specific to commercial cannabis activity that are located within the cannabis zoning regulations or section 178680 of the zoning regs. So that will be additional requirements such as operations plan, security plan, odor control plan, things specific to cannabis.
Perfect, thank you. All right, and I think Director Tway, did you want to add to that?
Yes, I would just add that, if someone is interested, the zoning code can be kind of ominous and confusing. And so that is one of the reasons we have a specific staff member for this. So I encourage people to always reach out to the planning department and ask for Ivana specifically. And I think, she's more than happy to walk people through what the requirements are and what the process looks like with a realistic idea of what timing would be.
Perfect, thank you so much. Vice Mayor Pease.
Thank you. Great presentation. So in terms of a retailer that's delivery only needs the minor use permit, but to add delivery to a storefront retailer, it requires a conditional use permit. And I'm wondering if we have discretion over that, or is that because they were issued a CUP in the first place that we have to do it as a modification?
You could make it a minor use permit. I think what we were thinking with the amendment is an amendment to an existing CUP is an easier process and likely a lower application fee and gets folded in. One of the things we like to do is make sure we understand the rules under which a business is operating. And if we can amend the CUP and see all of the conditions applicable to that business, it's easier for us than if we have a minor use permit and a conditional use permit. We can clearly check if someone is complying with the regulations. But I would say it's up to your discretion if you wanted to change it to a minor use permit.
But in this case, the CUP would actually be the more streamlined process?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shorsman.
Thank you. Yes, just a question that came up while you were presenting on that slide where you showed the differences between what a storefront retailer needs to complete versus a delivery only. And I noticed that there was 2 different license types. The license 9, I think it was, license 10 for type 10 for retail storefronts, and license 9 for the retail non-storefront delivery only. Does a retail storefront that wants to do delivery and retail need both licenses? Or can they do the delivery only just with the one state license that they already get?
So a retailer's storefront that wishes to engage in both retail sales by at a storefront and by delivery would only need to hold a Type 10 license, because under a Type 10 license, a retailer is authorized to conduct sales by storefront, by delivery, as well as by curbside pickup.
Okay, great. I mean, I realize it's a state license, so it's really out of our hands, but just wanted to see if that was going to be a more complicated part of the process for anybody. It sounds like it's not, so thank you.
Good question. Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Yeah, I've noticed that it's pretty tight security outside Megan's Market. I'm driving by, right? And I had heard that these businesses are not allowed to actually utilize the banking system, and so they have all this cash. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but my question is whether providing security is a condition of the conditional use permit.
So to answer your first question about banking, for the most part, most banks do not allow cannabis to engage in banking with them. So you are correct on your assumption that a lot of businesses currently are still operating on cash only. However, there are banks that do offer banking services with commercial cannabis businesses. As far as security goes, that could absolutely be part of the a condition of approval for a conditional use permit. It's also worth noting that during that review process for a conditional use permit, all commercial cannabis businesses are required to submit a security plan to the review and approval of the police department's representative for the cannabis program, which is Sergeant Brian Trainer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the answers, and seeing no more questions, any public comment?
We have none.
Wow. All right. Then moving forward, I just really want to say that I appreciate the access that you're providing, other businesses to be able to open up that delivery option. I also really appreciate the efficiency of this permit process. This is a process that is so new in the whole realm of California. I remember sitting out there just recently elected and watching everyone making the decision up here, and it was very complicated. So thank you for making it as smooth as possible. Councilmember Francis.
I'd like to move to approve item 6A.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Shoresman.
I'll second it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Shoresman?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Peace?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much for your time and your research.
Thank you.
I just have one comment.
Go ahead, Councilmember Marks.
I just want to say I think you did a really good job for your first time before City Council. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, next, in the realm of streamlining things as well and access, we're going to move on to introducing an ordinance to modify the qualifications for appointment to the Construction Board of Appeals. And I believe that Mr. Mike Lowe will take the place of Ivana.
All right, good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. I am Michael Lowe, your Chief Building Official, and this evening I'll be presenting on recommendations to update the bylaws for the Construction Board of Appeals, which I'll consistently refer to as the CBOA. The goal is for this action to expand the membership qualifications and to increase the candidacy pool for our current and future vacancies. This evening, there are two recommendations before you. The first is to introduce an ordinance that will amend the local building code and remove the local requirement to establish an accessibility board of appeals pursuant to state statute. The second recommendation is to adopt a resolution that will update the bylaws in the advisory body handbook to broaden our definition of a physically disabled representative and change the residency requirement for these two positions. I'll start by providing a brief overview of the CBOA. This board is critical to our community right now as we continue to experience elevated levels of construction. The CBOA provides technical oversight for the Building and Safety Division, and specifically the Chief Building Official's interpretations and determinations regarding Title 15 of the Municipal Code. These are the technical professionals that settle disputes between staff and our applicants. In the last 2 years, there have only been 2 public hearings before the CBOA. One was an appeal of a decision that I made on an application, and the other was for an appeal of a citation regarding a Title 15 code violation. Previously, the CBOA would only meet when a public hearing was requested and had even gone years without meeting in some cases. However, one of my goals has been to mobilize this body to be ready and effective when called upon. Last year, the board adopted a meeting schedule for regular meetings and public hearings. We cancel public hearing meetings if we do not have a matter for the board to hear. However, we meet at least 4 times a year, and we use these open meetings as an opportunity to gain feedback on various items. So, for example, we held study sessions on recent updates to the municipal code for the Utilities Department and for the Office of Sustainability as part of those policies public outreach efforts. This gave the technical professionals on the board, as well as members of the public, an opportunity to weigh in on that policy development. Currently, the bylaws require there be 7 members on the board, 5 of which are technical professionals and 2 that are supposed to be physically disabled members of our community. A physically disabled vacancy has existed on the board since April of 2022, but we do have 6 very skilled and technically competent individuals, 3 engineers, 2 are architects, 1 is a contractor. So for tonight, the Construction Board of Appeals, it's important to note that it's not unique to our city. The body is actually established in Section 113 of the California Building Code. However, what is unique to our city is that we have amended this section locally, which is found in Section 15.04.020 of the Municipal Code under subsection N, to include language that establishes an Accessibility Board of Appeals pursuant to the State Health and Safety Code. Now, with this comes specific requirements that determines the membership qualifications for 5 of the 7 CBOA members. Since this language is currently in our municipal code, the council cannot update the membership qualifications through a resolution in the same way that you've done for several other advisory bodies in the past couple of years. So this ordinance will remove that specific local requirement to establish the board in accordance with state statute, which the council is permitted to do. And it is the resolution that will actually create the language in the bylaw. And so the resolution will create a new local definition for the physically disabled community representative, modeled after the Mass Transit Committee's definition. This definition will include individuals with a close connection to someone who has a physical disability, such as a caretaker or family member, or someone who works in the field of disabled access codes, such as a certified access specialist. The resolution will also eliminate the residency and voter registration requirements only for those 2 positions. And so I just want to be clear that we're not proposing to eliminate the representation of the physically disabled community on this body, just simply moving it, the qualifications solely into the bylaws. And so with that, I will just share with you again the recommendations on the screen and be available for any questions.
Thank you so much. Vice Mayor Peace.
Thank you for that, and I confess I'm still confused about the Accessibility Board of Appeals. Is the Construction Board of Appeals still going to serve as this Accessibility Board of Appeals, or is that now some other role that doesn't have to be a board? I'm not familiar with that.
So the Accessibility Board of Appeals is an option to create locally if necessary. And so if you could imagine in a city like Los Angeles where there would be several public hearings on matters in a year, it may be necessary to have multiple bodies. Locally, we've decided already to combine them. And so we've put that requirement onto the current Board of Appeals. And so what we're proposing in the new language is that the Construction Board of Appeals just hears all matters related to Title 15, which is where our accessibility codes are currently adopted. So yes, they would still be hearing those matters.
Okay, and then would it still have that, so, but in terms of the naming, there wouldn't be an Accessibility Board of Appeals, it would just be that the Construction Board of Appeals hears accessibility and the other construction related?
That's
Okay,
correct.
and that was an optional thing that we had put into our codes prior. Okay, and then is there any expanded communication, definition, clarification that would be needed in terms of making, just, it doesn't sound great. We're eliminating the accessibility appeals process, so I'm just checking to see if there's
Yeah.
thoughts on how to communicate that.
Yeah, so what we're eliminating is the requirement to establish it pursuant to state statute. We're not necessarily eliminating the representation. And so we are moving the requirement to still have that representation to be solely within the bylaws of the advisory body, within the bylaws which are in the advisory body handbook.
Okay. Okay, the fact that I continue to be just a little bit confused about this, but let me see if that clears it up. Thanks.
Thank you. It's so funny because as I see it, it's like expanding the opportunities because, yeah, anyway, I'll come back to that. Councilmember Marks.
Yeah, I assume that a physically disabled person would still be qualified, even if they weren't a specialist in, or a relative or anything like that. They're still included in that definition, correct?
That's correct. And in fact, we left the language, we mirrored the image or the language from the Mass Transit Committee, which even specifies that physically disabled members of our community who live within the city, who are registered voters, should have preference in appointment to this body.
Right, okay. I think one of the reasons that perhaps there weren't applicants is just that there hasn't been a lot of outreach, like through Ride On or through the through the bus system, or it's sometimes a population that's hard to reach. So let's just say a resident had a problem with something that the city had done that was supposed to increase accessibility, but in fact didn't, in this person's opinion. Would they go to the Construction Board of Appeals to talk about it?
That would not be what this body is for. This body would be to hear specific disputes between applicants on building permits and the Building and Safety Division's interpretation of those matters. And so because access codes are so expansive now in the building code, there are some jurisdictions that just create bodies that specialize only on making determinations, settling disputes between applicants and the local jurisdiction. In this case, we have very few public hearing items, and so staff's recommendation is to just allow the Construction Board of Appeals to make those decisions.
Yeah, so the council's received emails lately about some access ramps that the city has installed, and they turn into puddles when it rains because of the drainage and like that. So I'm just curious, that this would not go, something like that would not go to the Construction Board of Appeals.
That's correct. That would not come before the Construction Board of Appeals.
All right, good. Thanks for helping clarify.
Thank you. Councilmember Shorsman.
Thank you. Let me just try to see if I can get at what Vice Mayor Pease's overarching question was. My understanding is that we're not changing the current purview of the Construction Board of Appeals in terms of weighing in on or hearing items on accessibility issues. We're merely changing the definition of accessibility, physically disabled community representative, to allow us to have probably a bigger pool of people, because over the last several years we've had difficulty recruiting those two physically disabled people to serve on on the Board of Appeals that our bylaws require us to have. Am I getting that correctly?
That's correct. It's the confusing thing for staff as well is that we have specific language in the ordinance that tells us also how to define that and what those qualifications for this body is. And so it's that language that's being eliminated. But it's precisely as you've described otherwise.
So the Construction Board of Appeals purview isn't changing. They've been the ones who would have heard accessibility issues in the past as well. It's just the definition, and that's why. Okay.
That's correct. So their purview will remain the same.
Thank you. Okay. And then the last thing about having expertise in disability construction specialty areas. My understanding of the definition for physically disabled community representative, where it says, such as an individual who works in a professional or advocacy capacity serving the physically disabled community, means it could be somebody with special construction expertise in that area, but it also could just be a social service provider that works with the disabled community, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Tway.
Yes, to add on to Mr. Lowe's comments to bridge Councilmember Shoresman and Vice Mayor Pease's comments. So yes, it would be the same purview. And I think where I'm understanding maybe the concern is that we are technically, it's a technicality to remove the local requirement to have that specific accessibility board, which again is not required, but it is removing something that does exist. In practice, we will still hear the same things, and that removal is required because some of those requirements are, once you have that board, then you must have, these types of members. So this provides us with the flexibility that we're looking for to make sure we have a full body to hear these matters.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Pease.
Thank you, and thank you to my colleagues. I am supportive. I think this makes sense to be able to, put the membership where it ought to be. I think my question, and maybe it's just kind of a general comment for the body to consider. I'm just looking at online the purpose, membership, and terms about that they may meet as the appeals board for disabled access for purpose of considering appeals. So I appreciate that it identifies clearly here that this would be the body to go to. So just making sure that the language is aligning, and so that we have clarity for the public. Because as a general, you know what I do for a living, and still this body is a little bit black boxish. So I really appreciate that you're bringing a little bit more visibility to the group and a certain approachability. So I think that'll be great, and it'll be good for them to revisit some of their messaging. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Tway.
And to that end, I think with the comments from Councilmember Marks about, maybe people don't know about this, one thing that we can do is proactively think about spreading awareness about the body overall, which Mr. Lowe has done a fantastic job over the last year, making sure that they are aware of their duties and meet regularly to hear things that maybe aren't just appeals, but being very cognizant of making sure people understand both of those roles of this body. So we'll make sure to do that as we outreach with the community.
And when you do outreach, does that include, I guess, who does that include? Let me ask you that question first.
I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Lowe, who talks about this with many people, I believe.
Yeah, so my interactions are usually with our applicants, so those stakeholders those who would be stakeholders in the decisions or outcomes of this body. And so there are several that I've engaged with who have expressed interest, who work in a professional capacity as a certified access specialist, but they even work for firms in our city, on projects in our city, but don't live here, live in a neighboring community. And so right now the outreach is just word of mouth, talking to applicants, inviting them to apply. And so as we continue to meet and I get to share the exciting things that the Construction Board of Appeals is doing, such as having study sessions about amendments for, future adoption. It is piquing several design and construction specialists, construction professionals, interest in joining and applying for the board.
Thank you. And I really was thinking kind of expanding from that, the Area on Aging or the Disability Resource Center at Cal Poly and Cuesta. I mean, places where we might not think of looking, because I think that's where, personally, I feel that when we talk about outreach, and we look at that, newer, updated public engagement manual, I think it's the who are we talking to that sometimes are missing, and not necessarily anyone's fault, just how do we expand that knowledge and how do we actually reach people who maybe want to be on this board? And I think because it's the Construction Board of Appeals versus the Construction and Accessible Board, or Accessibility Board, we might be missing an entire group of people. So I don't know that we want to necessarily change it. I'm not asking that, but at the same time, maybe that is a thought, because if people they're only thinking of construction, they might not be thinking about the accessibility part, even though in our world, that's who's going to do the changes, but trying to think about public facing versus interior and exterior. So any other questions? No? Okay, I'll move to public comment.
We have none.
Okay, we'll move back. So I guess as I look at this, I really appreciate Councilmember Shorsman for you to kind of lay it out as you did, because that was, to me, is we're not really changing the purview. We're really looking at actually expanding the access to people who understand the issues of accessibility, but yet maybe aren't actually a person with disabilities as well. So I do think that was a positive move, and I just want to really give you that kudos for that. Councilmember Shorsman.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide a little bit of perspective because I'm the liaison for the Construction Board of Appeals and the Mass Transit committees, and this is something that we've talked about for a while, and I really appreciate the change in the language around the definition and how it still prioritizes physically disabled members of the community before maybe some other qualifications that fit into the definition. So thank you for that. And I'll point out too that with the change that already occurred in the mass transit qualifications this last go round during advisory body interviews, I think we had 3 applicants that had physical abilities or physical disabilities, and at least one of them lived outside of the city. So I think the word has gotten out a little bit more, and I know I talked to the public communications manager and staff with related to the transit vacancies, and put together a little bit of extra outreach to some of the organizations that serve the disabled community. So I think this will really help get those 2 positions filled, help with quorum, give new perspectives to the discussions that are happening, and this is a no-brainer for me. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Marks.
Yeah, I when the moment is right, I'd like to move approval of this item. I did want to say that in the past, I have actually taught in the construction management department at Cal Poly as an adjunct professor. Contracts. The contractors are very interested in contracts. So, just the whole, in my legal career, I did a lot of construction law. So there's the construction management department, and I believe also the architecture department would have people who are experts in this field, and whether it would be a professor or maybe just a student or a graduate student, someone who's truly interested in this, I would suggest some kind of outreach to Cal Poly, and it might even be something that the construction management program would even want to let our Construction Board of Appeals educate them. Is like, what is it? I mean, what is this kind of appeal that you could possibly go through? What is that process and like that? So I think I really appreciate you expanding the program and making it more interesting for the folks who are volunteering to be part of the board. So thank you.
Well, I think the moment is right. I don't see anyone else's lights on. Councilor Marks.
I'd like to move the staff recommendation, please.
Great, I'll be happy to second that. Can we have roll call, please? Sorry, Andy.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Shorsman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pease?
Yes.
And the motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much for both of your good work. This is a quite rapid meeting. This is quite surprising. No, in a wonderful way. Thank you so much for the great presentations and the efficient conversation. Now we move on to the liaison reports and communications, which is kind of interesting because we just had a brown bag, as we call it, a council conversation that was public and available for everyone to come to if they wanted to. We had one member of public attend, and just really talking about what is this section for, this liaison reports and communications, and should we move it up in the agenda? Should we keep it here in the agenda? So I just really appreciate everyone's conversations. I have some things, but I'll move on first and see if anyone else would like to share their reports or communications. Vice Mayor Pease. Well, what we did come up with, thank you, is to keep the reports and communications here for now versus moving it up in the agenda, mainly because we know that people come to the meeting for a certain topic. And so if we prolong that topic, it means prolonging them getting back to their home or back to whatever else they would like to go on and do. But we really are focused on trying to give updates as to what our different advisory boards are that we sit on, or if there's something new and exciting that we should be sharing with the public. So if they're watching this at home, they get to watch it today or in the future. Yes, I know, it's amazing to imagine that. Councilmember Marks.
Well, I just wanted to say that not all of us together, but separately or in twos or ones, we have toured the Anderson Hotel. Did everybody get a chance to do that? Yeah, that was amazing. That was really fantastic. And it's going to result in, I believe, 78 or 73? 78 units for low-income and or disabled residents. And I believe it's scheduled to reopen after the renovation sometime in December. Yeah, I think that's what they said. And the people who used to live there who want to return are going to be getting first admission. So they will be able to maybe even go back to their original unit that they were living in before the renovations. Anyway, it's being managed through HASLO, the Housing Authority of San Luis Obispo, and I think it's just fantastic, and my heart goes out to all the businesses surrounding it. They've been putting up with construction forever, it seems like. So anyway, that was great. That was, for me, it was on the 28th of August. I wanted to also say that there was something exciting coming up at the Air Pollution Control District meeting on the 18th of September. I cannot attend that. I've already talked with Councilmember Francis, my alternate, because I'll be at the 3CE annual conference in Aptos on the 18th. But the Air Pollution Control District is also going to be giving out grants, in fact, not really grants. It's $217,000 that they've been allocated by the state to do lawn equipment trade-in. So if you have a gas-powered leaf blower, I'm still not big on leaf blowers in general, but the electric ones are better than the gas ones in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So they will just do a straight trade. And they figured that the money is going to be, they think it's going to go fast. But anyway, you get to vote on that on the 18th. And then the third thing I wanted to bring up is the email that we have received from Donald Alcock and also the testimony tonight from Julia Alberts of the Tobacco Control Coalition, wanting us to put banning smoking in multi-unit housing on the agenda. And I just wanted to bring that up and see if we would be interested in doing that. I know agendas are kind of packed, strangely enough, not tonight, but I believe that in units that are managed by People Self-Help Housing or HASLO, smoking is already not allowed. And so this would be extending it to other developments in the city. It's a big deal, but, and I'm not sure it could be handled before the end of the year, but what do people think without discussing the item?
Well, that is correct. I believe I received that response as well, that HASLO and People Self-Help Housing, why can I not speak tonight? People Self-Help Housing units are no smoking. That is correct. As far as our next couple of today's and our next couple of meetings happen to be a little bit lighter due to some things that were canceled, but our agenda is pretty full through the end of December. And in fact, we even talked about last week that we might need to have an extra meeting in December because of how much we have. So I think this would be, personally, I think this would be a good conversation for the budget conversation, and should this be one of these priorities of next year for the 25-27 budget? That's my personal thoughts. And Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, I'm in favor of looking at this issue, but I would like to look at it as maybe part of a larger discussion around health and safety and habitability. So maybe during the budget setting would be great.
Perfect. Vice Mayor Peace.
Yeah. So many of us. Yes, I would be happy to consider, well, I won't be here, but I think it would be appropriate under a next financial plan. Again, just kind of understanding what are the implications. It feels like we kind of sometimes can capture low-hanging fruit and other times break something open that might be more than we had understood would be part of it. So I'd want to fully, if I were y'all, I'd want to make sure I fully understood the scope. So maybe next year there'd be a memo within time to be, as you're developing the work plan.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a good plan, but thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, so I guess, could we just direct staff to think about sometime in the early part of 2025 to come up with a memo that would, lay out what the options could be. I think it might be considered part of tenant protection in that, well, everybody knows secondhand smoke is not good for you, so,
I don't think there's a direction for staff right now, but I think it would be something that we would want to talk about putting on the agenda for next year. But I think we would come back to the council at that time and direct our agenda creation at that time.
Okay.
Yep.
Alrighty.
Councilmember Shorsman?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Chomping at the bit to say something about this because I am, with my other hat on, I'm very interested in public health, and this is definitely a public health issue. And I have been keeping a running list for the financial planning process of issues that I have wanted to resurrect during that process. So I agree with what my other colleagues are saying, that I think this is a perfect thing to discuss during the financial planning process. And I suspect that Julia and the other members of the Tobacco Coalition will keep it on our radar. I'll go ahead and do my liaison reports if that's okay. I'm going to kind of stick to the regional bodies that I sit on and the activities that have happened since then, since I know there's been lots of other events that multiples of us have been at. and mention that I attended the Nacimiento Commission meeting for Councilmember Francis on the 22nd. I hear it was one of the longer meetings. We had a presentation on some of the repairs that are planned for on the Monterey, our partners to the north of us, I guess it's to the north of us, on their spillway. And so that was good to hear that presentation. And then there's been a lot of activity with the Homeless Services Oversight Council in the last several weeks, an executive committee meeting, and then also am sitting on a subcommittee that is looking at our grant making process. There are a lot of grant funds that come through the HSOC to nonprofit housing developers, to service providers that provide services to the homeless population. And some of those funds seem to be shrinking, unfortunately, over the last several years. And with the state budget the way it is, we're not anticipating those funds to be coming as extensively as they have over the last several. So just looking at ways that we can use data to help make better recommendations to the Board of Supervisors with limited funds so that we can try to cover all the service provision needs and housing types that we have, but in a more data-driven and gap-filling manner. And then also just wanted to mention upcoming, because it will be before our next council meeting, that the Climate Coalition is holding an event on Friday the 13th at 5 p.m. And I believe that's open to the public and should be a good time for all.
Is it Meadow Park?
Yes, 5 p.m. I believe on Friday the 13th at Meadow Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pease.
Thank you. I do want to just circle back on the smoking and multifamily housing and check with staff to see, sometimes it's not necessarily clear how big of a scope of work. And so a memo provides a little bit of an option if it were, in the spring. So I guess I just want to check in. Does this issue seem like it has enough nuances that it would be helpful to have more conversation about the scope of commitment, or is there kind of enough information out there that could be folded into a 25-27 financial plan without additional effort?
City Manager.
Thank you. And we have started having conversations internally, given the correspondence that we've been receiving on this question and issue. It sounds like it is something that we've considered in the past as well. And we do know that, as others have mentioned, there are other jurisdictions that have similar ordinances in place. So we wouldn't be starting from scratch. I mean, we'd have some models out there. I think if memos being requested at this point without, a huge amount of work effort, it's probably more of like an issue spotting type of memo where we would maybe raise a lot of questions. I'm not sure how helpful that would be. Otherwise, it is something that would likely take, a fair amount of effort and research on our part to just make sure we're thinking through all of the potential consequences and evaluating all of those other models. So I think ideally, we would kind of have a conversation about scoping and then be able to fold it into a work plan in the new financial plan in 25-27. That would give us enough time, certainly, to make sure that we were segmenting out our work given all the other items on our plate. So, of course, I would say more time is better for staff and kind of working it into our work plans. But if a quick kind of memo that just basically highlights some of our questions that we would want to ask, that wouldn't be too difficult to put together.
Well, I guess maybe it's the opposite question then. What is most helpful for staff? Does staff have enough information, or would a memo and then follow-up council direction kind of trying to narrow the scope, if that would be helpful? Otherwise, I don't think any of us need a memo. It's more of what is helpful for the staff process on something that's a little bit newer.
My guess is I think we would want to address this first through a study session where we brought forward that analysis So we'd make sure, and as well as, you know, that provides more opportunities for engagement with the public and gives us more options for making sure that our stakeholders who would be more impacted by a regulation like that would have an opportunity to be engaged with us. So we would definitely be able to package that all up in a study session so that everybody has the same level of information. We will then have time to do the research and the analysis of the, you know, ins and outs and potential repercussions and enforcement questions and things like that.
Gotcha. So it could kind of go to that level.
I believe so.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you. Great, thanks for humoring me on that. I just had one to share, which was the, as we, I think, talked about beforehand, SLOCOG and the Coast Rail Coordinating Council that we hosted that in here in the city, and Councilmember Francis was there, and our city manager was there, and they were able to tour in person the Lausanne, the site that will be the thank you, right. The Lausanne, which is the Los Angeles, San Diego, San Luis Obispo rail that runs the Amtrak train between them. So we're trying to expand that opportunity to have more train service. So a layover facility is being developed, and it's phased and it's very long term. But it was good, I think, for us to show everybody else, but even just for the leadership team to see what that site is physically going to look like. And it has a bike lane incorporated into it, and a recognition of the historic roundhouse kind of footprint there, et cetera. So that was great to be able to host that tour and mixer the night before, and then we had the rail meeting, our regular Coast Rail Coordinating Council meeting the next day with, I think the item of note, there was a lot of, you know, where's money going, where's it coming from? But the interesting piece, I think, was this Dreamstar overnight service, which is a private company that is looking to develop an overnight San Francisco to LA train with the sleeper cars, but they are looking for support from those who are already operating on the rail. So it was I thought, an interesting discussion. And, you know, we support you in theory, but not if you take track time that we need or money that we need. So I think it was a pretty fair summary of that conversation. But anyway, interesting things in rail.
Nice, thank you. This was a kind of exciting week, I guess, for me. I had a lot of different visits along with the Hotel Anderson. The bike ride, I went on a bike ride on Friday with Bike Slow, Rick Ellison from Bike Slow, and Gary Havis, a longtime volunteer. And the reason I bring this up is because really looking at, for someone like myself who doesn't really ride a bike very much, and the discomfort level that I have in riding a bike, and going through some of our new infrastructures, the North Truro Greenway we talked about today, but also some of our other structures and our facilities, and the new Rigetti Ranch area, and just looking at not just the overall gaps in safety feeling of being in a covered space or not, but also just directions in what in the world to do next. Really hoping that, you know, as we talk about our active transportation plan, and we talk about what our next steps are in the capital improvement plan and in the budget next year, that just talking about some of the basics that maybe a brand new person or a younger person that's in K through 12, I know they're getting education, but really understanding what to do next. Do you go on the sidewalk? Do you not? Is there an arrow? No, because you just passed the arrow that told you where to go. Just, you know, trying to not know all the things. Just really open my eyes to some additional conversations to have that I really wouldn't even have looked at. So I really appreciate the time to really look at our bike infrastructure, which is so much improved. Don't get me wrong, really excited about it. But, and also really want to see some different art, not metal art, in that North Truro Greenway in the future, because it's a little bit hiding places that makes me very concerned. On an exciting note, too, got to go to the grand jury, not as being on the grand jury, but just being able to present about our city. And we get to do this every year. It's really exciting to have the city manager and the mayor gets to present from every single city. And one thing we really saw this time was a really positive response from the grand jury. They said, wow, everyone is really collaborating regionally. And that is something we hadn't seen as much in the past. And they really commented on how they were excited about that. So a big thank you to City Manager McDonald and to Natalie Harnett for putting together all the paperwork and all the things that go with it. A little competitive at times as we look at each other's handouts and what can we do differently. I also got to speak with Bishesh Anand and Maurice Lyles. They're from the governor's office for the Southern California region. We are at the top of the Southern California region. And I mention this because there were so many things that we're all dealing with across the state. The cleanups on the highway embankments are a challenge when it comes to Caltrans and having enough time or speed and having enough people to really do that cleanup. But also, as that time goes on, the encampments and the litter continues to grow. So as we talk about the safety and unfortunate deaths that we've had in our community on the highway, really wanting to see how do we make this a better process. There's been an LA/Caltrans MOU that they sent our way to look at and see, is this something we'd want to do? Lots of interesting processes. Also, I know in the past, Attorney General has talked around hate crimes, hate incidents. What do we talk about? The governor has an OES, Office of Emergency Services grant funds for nonprofits who might be experiencing hate. So increasing the security, and if that's something that we can help get the word out, would be really good. Those funds are applicable through the 23rd to apply for, and this is typically expecting that churches, mosques, synagogues are experiencing additional hate, and they wanted to be able to provide additional funds for that. So I wanted to make sure that was known. And lastly, that there's additional Prop 1 grant funds that, back to collaboration, are really around behavioral health and how do we improve behavioral health in our community. And that's really working with, obviously, the county, since that's the purveyor of behavioral health here. So that's what's been going on. I'm excited about Concerts in the Plaza this Friday. I bring it up because it's the last one, Dante Marsh and the Vibe Setters, and really thanking all of the volunteers, Downtown Slow, employees, and all of the sponsors for making this happen. It's something that I always find incredibly enjoyable, and hope that everyone can attend if they are available. So that's it for me, and I just really want to thank you all for listening to the many updates I had today. And we will see everyone back for a closed session on the 17th at 4:30. After that, we'll go back to our regular meeting at 5:30 right here in council chambers. Have a good night. And of course, one quick last-minute update. Happy birthday, Councilmember Shorsman. It was her birthday yesterday. All right, we'll see you, and have a good night.